Hi, everyone. I'm Norma Loeb, founder of the Lewy Body Dementia Resource Center. This video series has been created to bring awareness through firsthand experience of people living with Lewy body dementia, their caregivers, and through expert physicians. This crucial information will be shared with healthcare professionals, with families, and the general public to heighten awareness and to enable correct diagnosis. Please know we are here to help you every single day on our live helpline. I thank you for watching.
Fluctuations are very much part of Lewy body dementia. It's interesting to note that in our case, and I say our because we're in this together, in our case, it had no pattern to it. It would come and go. Sometimes he could go for days with being 100% Nicky, and then sometimes it was hour to hour. It was a different person. As it progressed, as the disease progressed, the anger issues became more prevalent, and there were moments when it was really just a ferocious lashing out, and then he would catch himself and say, "I'm so sorry," and my response to that was, "It's okay. It's the disease speaking. It's not you." And that's a very hard thing to take with this disease. Most diseases are linearly progressive. They just follow a pattern and go downhill, and they keep going downhill. This one is in and out all of the time, and because of that, it takes its emotional toll, not only on the person who's going through it, but on the caregiver. There's just no question about it. It hurts when somebody comes at you and says, "I don't trust you." I mean, after years and years and years of nothing but trust, when that comes at you, it's like, my God, it's a lightning bolt. And then in your saner moments, after you take a deep breath or do some yoga exercises, you realize that this is not your loved one speaking. It's a third party invading.
I wake up in the morning and basically I have my breakfast. There are some days where I feel like I'm in a complete fog, where I'm totally confused and very anxious. Simple things make me very, very anxious. We babysit 5 days a week for my grandchild. In addition to that, I do word games. I try to keep myself as busy as possible because I think about this all the time. I think about it all the time, but I don't talk about it very much. And I was holding back information from my wife and daughters, and they were very unhappy that I was doing that. So I have been a good boy, and I've been including them in what I'm going through and how I could best go forth with this. Today, for example, maybe 3 hours ago, I was in a complete fog. I get a runny nose. As soon as I get a runny nose, I know it's starting. And at that particular point, I lose focus. I become very inattentive. I can't do basic tasks. I'm really, really in a fog. And then it disappears. Now, like right now, I'm doing much better. But if you had seen me 2-3 hours ago, I was a different kind of a person.
While it gradually fluctuates by day or week or month, sometimes his cognition is better, sometimes it's worse. I find that throughout each individual day, his cognition changes.
Right. You can have a conversation, or I could have a conversation, and they could be different how he was.
Right. And I think a lot of it has to do with how fatigued he is. So while he really pulls it together, maybe for a lunch or to be with people, even though sometimes he's more quiet than we're used to, those 2 hours will be the time where he'll, show off and be engaged or try and add value to the conversation.
He'll use all the gas he's got in his tank for that one thing.
And then
Then he's running on empty after that.
Right. And depending on how his rest was, what his anxiety level is, the next day, it might be a little better, it might be a little worse. Sometimes we find that there are better weeks than others.
I think those are
But
becoming fewer,
Exactly.
fewer and far between.
Exactly. We're finding that instead of the big dips, and the raises in his cognition, that it's more becoming gradually lower, maybe a little bit
Right,
bit higher.
right.
internal or external, a stressor, a new environment, a new caregiver, right? A new medication may cause them to fluctuate. Sometimes we don't even know why we see these fluctuations. And that can be very difficult for a caregiver as well, who is, has certain expectations, and then there's this decline that they have to deal with. It's like expect the unexpected.
I have bad days, and I have bad hours, and I have bad minutes, and they come at me at their own will. So I'm just kind of trying to remember that there's a bigger reality, and I don't know. It's you can't be prepared for it all the time. It's just too erratic. I've known people who've talked about how they're fighting a battle, like they let themselves relax a little bit. They'll enter into the crazy story, and they'll have a part, and they'll play their part, and they'll be, running away or whatever their character in the movie would be doing. That's what they're doing in reality. And I think that scares me. That scares me, like it's kind of dangerous. Because you're running down the street chasing a ghost, and no one else knows what the hell is going on. And so you have to keep one foot in reality. It looks like that eventually gets lost.
His behavior is so brittle that it as I said, resembles the Dow Jones Industrial Index. It's jagged, it's up one day, down the next. And that went on for quite a few months. More recently, it's kind of plateaued to a lower level, and I see fewer peaks, fewer ups, fewer good times or good thoughts or good conversation or good anything. It's sort of plateau, and the lower part of the graph would be just edging lower, lower, lower. So that's the part we're on. Our conversations are very difficult. He has such blockages from the Lewy body disease that sentences are impossible. And if he manages a short sentence, it has words in it that you just don't understand. They're made up words. They may be a piece of one word and a piece of another word, but they make no sense. And I can't always tell what he's saying, but and that's difficult.
This is the most disturbing thing, or the most difficult thing to deal with, because literally from hour to hour, certainly day to day, you could be a completely different person. You could wake up one day feeling great. Wow, I feel wonderful. I'm going to go out and take the world on, just unfortunately. And the next day, you can't get out of bed. You don't want to even put your clothes on. And it could be day to day. I'm here talking now. I feel fairly good, but we could end this conversation. I could go into the other room and I could start to go downhill and not feel so good. And the fluctuations are up and down. And that is a very disturbing thing because you don't really know what to expect. You know, most people get up and they know they're going to work, they're doing this. But when you don't know how you're going to feel from really moment to moment, day to day, and you know it's related to this brain problem, it's really not you having a mood problem, you realize that you're limited. And we have to plan our lives, because when I wake up, if we had planned to do something and I'm in that, I'll call it the mood, which is very difficult to describe, but it's a mood where you just don't care to do anything. You just don't care to do it. And that could fluctuate out and that could come in. So in your life, you're very much on a roller coaster. And that can be hard to deal with if you don't sort of accept it and talk to your doctors and understand that that's not you. It's the disease that's doing that to you. And you have to learn how to deal with it when it hits you and recognize it, and don't let it scare you, because it actually could scare you, because your mental state changes, your mood changes, and you don't see any reason for it. And then you realize, well, it's your brain disease.
I think one of the very hardest things about caregiving someone you love who has Lewy body dementia are the fluctuations, because you don't know, not only from one day to the next, what you're going to encounter. Sometimes it's 1 hour to the next, what you're going to encounter. Paul could be pretty with it and then lie down and take a nap and get up, and an hour later and be completely delusional and hallucinating, or vice versa. And it's very, very traumatizing to the caregiver to live that way, because you become hypervigilant. You wonder what's going to happen. You're constantly trying to anticipate, and you can't anticipate what you're going to encounter. So I would say, and the fluctuations can be physical, where he could barely move and walk, and it was very difficult. He went sometimes for months with just needing to use a walker and suddenly not needing the walker. This was early on, 5 years ago. He could go for a month without needing the walker, and suddenly he needed it again because he was feeling the wooziness, the dizziness. So the physical symptoms fluctuate tremendously, and the cognition and delusions really do fluctuate a lot.
Every morning I wake up, I say, okay, let's see what day it's going to be like today, because his mood fluctuates frequently. You know, we'll be sitting at one time and we'll be enjoying a movie, or I think he's enjoying. I think sometimes he follows on with the movies because he makes jokes about what he's seeing, or he makes comments about what he's seeing, you know. But in the next few minutes, he might get up and go to the kitchen, and I say to him, "Oh, what are you doing?" And he flips, you know, just like that. It's like he doesn't know what it is I'm talking about, or you know. And the thing that happens is, whenever he doesn't understand or he cannot express himself, he curses, you know, and this is an outlet for him. And I said to him, "Why do you always curse?" I said, you have such a good diction. Why do you always use those same words? It's like you don't know any other words. And he would say to me, "Oh, you know more than me, right?" I said, "No, I don't know more than you, but I use it once that I know," you know, and not offensive. But he is always very, very thankful for whatever I do. He's always courteous. I help him in the shower. He thanks me so much. You know, I give him his meals, and he thanked me so much. But like 5 minutes later or 2 minutes later, he said, you might say that you've never done anything for me in your life, or things like that. So it just, and you just never know from moment to moment what's coming next.
Fluctuations. They have pretty big, significant changes in their thinking and their awareness and their ability to be awake and alert. And everyone has good days, bad days. This is a little bit different. This isn't, oh, I was a little bit better today, a little bit more tired yesterday. Oh, I remember to take my medicine, so I'm a little bit perkier. This is a lot more profound. This is without a clear cause. It could be minute to minute in some people. It could be hour to hour. It could be day to day. And it's variable. So it's not like, oh, well, every evening my loved one starts getting more confused and getting more restless and a little bit irritable, which is something that's called sundowning that could be common across many, many different kinds of dementias or brain diseases. This is without a pattern. So it's not necessarily a particular time of day or related to anything else. And it's also various degrees. Some people it's relatively mild or infrequent. Some people it's profound enough that doctors wonder, oh, is this person having a seizure, a stroke, something else going on? And so depending on how often, how much, how bad, it can actually be quite frightening and can lead to other medical care, which perhaps at first it should. After the 5th, 6th time we don't see anything, then perhaps not. Other people, for caregivers, it can be very frustrating. And what do you mean? When the doctor saw you, you looked great, and then 20 minutes later you look horrible, and if only the doctor saw you when you looked like you do now, or if only my other family members saw you the way that you look now, but you pulled it together on, the caregiver pulls their hair out. And that's unfortunately part of the disease, that people are just different, and people's ability to think and to process and to interact just changes.
I could have an hour or two like today, and I'd be absolutely fine. And within half an hour, I could be somewhere else. Within another hour, I'd be, like tonight, around about 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, I start to get restless nearly every night, almost every night. Within the hour, then I'm asking to go home. How many times have we heard that? Within the people asked to go home. So much we could do, by simplifying it. And as a person living with dementia, I like to think that when I has to go home, do I mean my spiritual home? No, I am not that way inclined. Do I mean my home of my birth? No, that's 600 miles away, and I live in a beautiful part of the country now, which I would never leave. Which is Devon in UK, so I would never leave it. So what do I mean when I say I want to go home? When I want to go home is when Elaine comes over to me and consoles me and puts a hand on mine, tells me I'm safe. I need to know I'm safe. I need to know that in that particular time, in that day, I'm going to be okay.